I'm going to go very quickly to my old, because I mean, why mess around with introductions here? My old pal, Elie Honig, I've been around with him for a long, long time. I'm so excited to catch up with him and shoot the bull. And he probably can't come on Substack and say shit and fuck and things like that, like I do, which is I feel very sorry about that. But I am coming to you live from Colorado today. I didn't even mention that why I have all these beautiful aspen trees behind me. But Molly, of course, brought it up and rubbed my nose in it, which is all wonderful. But no, it's great to talk to Elie again. Here he's coming in now. He's coming in
Hey,
hot.
what's up?
Elie, good to see you, man.
How you doing, Jim? Great to see you.
Great to see you too. It's been too long. I'm so glad we got to do this again. How are things? How you been?
I'm great. So before we get to me, though, I have to tell
Yeah.
you, I love Acosta Unplugged. Like, you're tan, like your hair is long, you're dressing
Oh,
casual.
I totally grew it out. It's like a squirrel's nest. There's like animals living in there.
This is like Acosta. Yeah, Acosta has his wild summer of tan and fun and all that. It's cool to see, though. I'm
I
enjoying
appreciate
it. I
it.
really
Well, I
am.
think it might have been Matt Friend suggested that I call my podcast "Fuck It" with Jim Acosta. That I was like, I can't do that. I can't every day. What if I have a congressman? I had Elizabeth Warren on recently. I can't be like, "Welcome to Fuck
Yeah.
It." Here's Elizabeth Warren. You can't do that.
It's a good title, but yeah, you're right. By the way, I recently had just the other day. It's kind of I had a great Acosta Show flashback.
Oh
So
my goodness.
as we speak right now, I'm coming to you from Rutgers Studio where I work and I teach because I'm recording my audiobook. Now, Jim, you
Oh,
and I have the
wonderful.
same publisher, HarperCollins, and you went through this. So like, I'll turn my camera, but like, I don't know if people can see over there, but that little black box in the corner, that's my home
Ah,
this week. And
that's your
anyways,
hole.
yeah, exactly. I mean, it's exhausting. My voice
It
being a
is.
little
It's so
husky
exhausting.
as you can be right. It's people probably are rolling their eyes like, oh, poor you. You have to record an audio. People have real jobs, but it is pretty brutal.
I remember I had to take a week
So,
off from work when I did mine because you're in there for 6 hours a day and you're wiped out. Again, not that
oh,
anybody has any sympathy, but it's true, you know.
it's true. No, I mean, you're standing for a 6 hour day. You're speaking, you're reading your book. And it's just like, it's exhausting. So, and look, you
Yeah.
and I have both had, I work restaurants, catering, whatever. I've done them all. So
Yeah.
I get it. But anyway, I was doing like a promotional video. And I remembered that when I did my first book, Mark Hamill, Luke Skywalker,
Love
had
him.
sent some sort of tweet like encouraging me, a really nice thing. And so I went on Twitter and I like searched Mark Hamill and Elie Honig or something, and I saw something else that made me laugh. There was an episode of your show when you had Mark Hamill on, and I responded something like, "Holy crap! I'm going to be in the same show, and I'm going to be able to say I was in something with Mark Hamill." And because he's such a great guy, he responded, "Holy crap! I'm going to get to say I was in something with Elie Honig," which I was like,
I
somehow I
know.
forgot about that. But man, what a
So
great guy!
cool. I
Yeah,
know we have so many great shows on the weekends because Ellie, you could come on and it was sort of like this. We had a lot of time where we could talk.
we
And that's what I
did.
love about this is that we can just talk and talk. And there's not as much pressure to, get to a commercial break or get through a bunch of
Rap.
questions.
Right.
Exactly. And I do want to talk about your book, but I
Yeah.
feel like the
No,
thing that
please.
I would be, if I were back in my old place and you and I were doing a thing together, I would be super anxious and eager to talk to you about the Epstein case
Yes, let's
and
do it.
whether I can't imagine you had worked on it at some point or
No, 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 no.
you didn't have anything to do
I
with that.
covered it.
Yeah.
I covered it for CNN. I have no conflict or anything.
You
Now,
cover
yeah,
but
yeah,
what do you think about this? Because I talked to Molly about the political implications of it.
yeah.
Obviously, there's probably nothing legally that I can think of that Trump has to worry about. I don't know. I mean, maybe he does. He's been very squirrely about this lately. But what have been your just overall thoughts on the
Yeah.
whole thing?
So I wrote a piece. I write a weekly piece for New York
Yeah,
Magazine last week titled something like "Nobody Trusts Pam Bondi," right? And of
that's
course, I
true.
write in the piece. I mean, liberals and Democrats distrusted her from the start primarily because she's an election denier. She's a 2020 election denier. She was quite vocal at the time. She said, "We won Pennsylvania." I mean, false. And she never really took it back at her confirmation hearing. She gave the old, "Oh,
That's
Joe
right.
Biden is the president," that BS line. And I said, so she never had liberals, obviously, but now she has lost a hell of a lot of conservatives. I mean,
Yeah,
and why? Why? Because, and I'm working on a piece. I'll preview it. Previewing the number one mistake Pam Bondi made is she didn't abide by like the most bedrock DOJ principle, which is we don't disseminate our closed investigative criminal files. We don't imagine if they did that. Imagine if they just dumped out, oh, I want every
Thank
interview
you.
ever
Okay.
given. Right. Exactly. It would be mayhem. And sometimes those rules suck, right? Like, look, in the public, I would love to see everything. But
Yep.
having been a DOJ prosecutor, those rules are there to protect people and to protect you. If you're the AG, you just go, look, folks, like, I wish I could turn this over, but there's this crappy old rule that everyone from both parties has always abided by, and my hands are tied here.
But it's a little too, isn't it? It's
Instead,
a little too late for that now, though, right? It's a little too late. And
100%,
the other problem
100%
is
too
that
late.
other problem
Yep,
is Trump has said let's release them. JD Vance has said let's release them. Cash
yep,
Patel,
yep.
Bongino, the people they put at the FBI.
Exactly. So they've all walked themselves into this ridiculous corner. And making matters worse, Pam Bondi has been, I'll try to be charitable, but she has been vastly overblowing the contents. I mean, she said to
Yeah.
Fox News, they said, how about the client list? She said, it's on my desk right now. I mean, there probably is no client list. I don't know, as delineated, there could be incriminating information.
Yeah.
But she remember when she first took office, she said, oh, I'm going to disclose the Epstein files phase 1. And she handed out those ridiculous binders that people were holding up. And there was like
Right.
crap in there, like 200 pages of stuff that had already come out. So it's like she's created this vice, those things where you put your fingers in, and like she's created this vice of her own making by A, ignoring DOJ policy, and B, I'll just say over promising what she would do and what was in those files. And then suddenly last
Yeah.
week, she goes, no, here's an FBI memo that says there's nothing to see and nothing further. And therefore everyone stop bothering me. So I totally understand the backlash. And by the way, the backlash, I mean, when I was researching for my piece, I was like, conservative, right wing, MAGA, lash out, Bondi. That was my Google
Yeah.
search. And it was like,
But here's the thing,
yep,
Ellie. To me, like pinning this on Pam Bondi and making her the scapegoat, which is what Megyn Kelly wants to do and Laura Loomer wants to do, and
yep,
give me a break. That's
yep.
that. First of all, do we really think that they put out that DOJ memo without any sort of nudging by the White House to put out this memo that puts it, kind of sweeps it under the rug and puts it to bed and says, oh, by the way, we don't think there's a big conspiracy here. And oh, by the way,
Yeah.
case closed and so on. I'm sorry. That sounds like something that has some White House fingerprints on it. And if it does, then that brings the scandal back to the White House. And the way that Trump
It,
has been talking about this, he says it's now fake and that it was Comey and all this other stuff.
right.
He sounds like he's got something to hide. That's what
Well, it's
makes
a
all
great
of this mysterious.
I totally agree that Pam Bondi has
Yeah.
become this lightning rod, and
Yeah.
all the anger is suddenly on her. Whereas either she as the AG or the president could, with a snap of the fingers, just say everything's public. We're putting it online. I mean, there's nothing legally. There's a lot of DOJ policy preventing them from doing that, but legally,
Yeah.
if they choose to do that, they can do that. So I agree with that. And, the question I keep coming back to is like, why the sudden turnabout? Why the
Yeah.
everyone you just listed being 100% hard, whatever left, the accelerator all the way to the floor. We are going to turn this stuff over and reveal everything to like suddenly the brakes jammed on. And by the way, I was listening to Michael Smerconish, our friend and colleague, on the radio this morning, and I think he was reading, actually, I think he was reading from the Washington Post or something. So I don't want to misattribute this, but some smart person out there made a point about if this was like some sort of Democratic Party setup, why would no Democrat have ever turned this stuff over? I mean, it's so obvious.
Well, and also, if it was the Democrats that cooked this up, you're the Republicans who are in charge, so release it and put that out there. The other thing that I have on my mind, Ellie, is I talked to Mark Epstein yesterday. He was on my show, Jeffrey Epstein's
Right,
brother,
yeah.
and he thinks that he calls it a murder. Now he thinks that his brother was murdered somehow, and points to a lot of strange things. And who's to say whether or not any of this adds up to anything? But the fact that that the brother was Jeffrey Epstein was on suicide watch, and there are cameras that aren't functioning properly. Apparently, there are mattresses and blankets in the room when they shouldn't have been. There's just some weird things here, and apparently there were coroners or medical examiners that had questions themselves. When you look at any of that stuff, and do you look at any of that stuff and say, well, that's damn curious too? Or do you say, this is conspiracy theory stuff? What do you?
I think we are at the phase with the cause of Jeffrey Epstein's death where it's like the JFK assassination phase. Like, there's so much information out there. There's so many questions that no one's ever going to be satisfied either way, right?
Yeah,
I mean, I think if you took a poll, I'd actually be interested in what public opinion polling says about this. I imagine it's out there. But like, what percent of the American public thinks that he committed suicide as opposed to murder? It feels
yeah,
50-50-ish to me. I don't
yeah,
really have a theory. I just am at the place of I haven't seen a smoking gun saying, he
yeah.
was murdered. I know that building pretty well. I mean, I was in that building, the MCC, a million times. It's closed now because it was such a dump for renovations.
Right.
I don't know. I mean, look, there's always going to be a gap. There's a 1 minute gap now, apparently, in some surveillance video that Pam Bondi tried to say is normal. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. But like, the problem is people are just dug in. They just believe X or Y. And like, I don't think anyone's genuinely persuadable. My position on this is like, I just don't know. And I don't have any magical insight. So,
Okay, and I won't press you too much more on this, but I had a couple of questions. I put a chat question out earlier today on Substack. Got some questions from that, which I think are very
go for it.
interesting. One of
Yeah.
them was, is Epstein's girlfriend and conspirator heavily guarded in her prison cell?
Oh,
Could she somehow talk? And another person asked, can she be forced to talk? I suppose she can't be forced to talk.
no. Right.
But she's serving a 20-year prison sentence right now, of course, after being convicted in 2021
J.
of
Maxwell.
conspiracy with Epstein. Ghislaine Maxwell,
Yeah.
exactly. What are
So,
your thoughts on that? And could she potentially have some information?
so it's interesting because I think I wrote a piece at the time, maybe for CNN or something. Like, if you Google my name and Ghislaine Maxwell, God, I don't like that. But,
Yeah, yeah,
me writing about Ghislaine Maxwell, I think I wrote a piece at one point talking about like, could she actually flip? Would there be a reason for, I mean, now here's the calculation. She has, as the criminals would say, she has stood up so far, meaning she has never gone in to talk as far as we know. She has stayed quiet and taken whatever she knows into that jail cell with her.
right.
It could be that she gets to a point where she does the math and goes, I've got 14, whatever it is, years left, and I'm however many years old. And so I want to talk to prosecutors. And at that point, the way it would work is her lawyer would contact probably the SDNY and say, Ghislaine Maxwell is ready to come clean and tell you everything she knows. And there is a way to get a sentencing reduction after the fact. Before the fact, the way it normally works is you cooperate before you plead guilty, and then you get what's called a 5K letter. But you could also do the thing where you cooperate after you've been convicted while you're serving a sentence. And if you're good, you get what's called a Rule 35, meaning the prosecutor will write a letter, same thing,
Yeah.
asking the judge to reduce your sentence. Would she do it? I mean, look, you can benefit this way. I don't know that prosecutors would be interested in hearing her out, would have any interest in even going down that path. But so I think it's an extreme long shot. I will say also, by the way, a lot of this stuff is going to have statute of limitations problems now. Even if
Yeah.
there's like a glaring crime that somebody committed, usually the statute of limitations on these things is 5 years. So,
And I'm
you would
not.
have,
Well, and the other thing
yeah,
is, I'm not sure that the feds. I mean, the federal prosecutors who are perhaps worried about incurring the wrath of Donald Trump, whether they would be all that anxious to open up this Pandora's box with Ghislaine
yeah.
Maxwell.
I
And
mean,
so some of this would have to come from her side, from her attorney.
yeah,
You
I mean,
know.
well, certainly, even if I was, putting myself back in that office, if I got a call one
Yeah.
day from an attorney for Ghislaine Maxwell saying she wants to talk, I would go, before we do that, and I'm very uncertain I want to do that, but I need what we call an attorney proffer, meaning you, lawyer, you give me everything she's going to tell me, and you give me any support for that, because you don't just haphazardly walk into that conference room if you're a prosecutor.
Yeah. All right. Well, Ellie, you got a new book coming out,
Yes.
and are you allowed to talk about it yet? I guess
Yeah.
I'll just ask you
Yeah,
about it
we can
anyway.
do it. So you're a pro. You know that like we can preview it, but without yeah. It's
When You
called
Come at the King is going to be the
yes,
name of the book, and
yes,
it basically boils down to, if you're going to go after Donald Trump as part of this judicial process that he went through over the last couple of years, which he played like a violin and helped him get back into the White House,
yep,
you better mind your P's and Q's, as my mom might say, and a lot of these cases were a mess, but you talk first, and then I want to ask you about the January 6th case, because as you know, I've always been obsessed with that case. And
sure.
but why did you write the book?
Well, first of all, it's not a Trump book.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, it's really much more of an overview of from Watergate through Jack Smith. So
Yeah.
I'll tell you how I came up with the idea. Did you read George Stephanopoulos' book, The Situation
The
Room?
Situation Room. Yeah, that's a great book.
So it's
Yes.
really good. And as I read it, or after I finished, I thought, ooh, what a great structure. You take this really important governmental institution, the Situation Room in his case, and in my case, special counsel, independent counsel, whatever, it's been called different things over the
Yeah.
years. And you have a chapter on each major use of it, right? So
Yeah.
Stephanopoulos has Bay of Pigs and, on through 9/11 and on through COVID. And so for me, I start with sort of, there's overview in my assessment and all that stuff, but basically the first big chapter is Watergate, and then we go to Iran-Contra, and then we go to Clinton and Ken Starr, and we proceed through, there was no special counsel, but Comey and the 2016 election, all the way through Scooter Libby, all the
Yeah.
way through Mueller and her and Hunter Biden, and finally Jack Smith is the last. And the end of the book is about like, what do we do now in Trump 2.0 era? And I will tell you, this was a joy to write this book because I got insider accounts all on record. There's no an anonymous person. Everyone put their
That's
name on
great.
it. Yeah, I just decided enough people were willing. So every chapter has at least one voice and sometimes four or five voices. People from Watergate, prosecutors, John Dean, of course, Carl Bernstein gave, but Jill
Amazing.
Wine-Banks, and then from Clinton, I have people who were on Ken Starr's teams. I have Clinton's lawyer, David Kendall, Rod Rosenstein, people from Mueller's team, people from
Mm-hmm.
Trump's defense team, people from the guy, Abby Lowell, who defended Hunter Biden, Bob Bauer, who defended Joe Biden, all of them on the record. A couple people who were actually prosecuted by special counsel. One of the guys, you won't know. I don't think it'll take an iron memory to remember this name. Igor Danchenko. Does that name ring a bell for you?
No, that does not ring a bell.
This is one of the poor not a sap, I shouldn't say that, but this is one of the unfortunate guys who was prosecuted by John Durham. Remember John Durham with the
Oh,
goatee and
that's
stuff?
right. The Durham.
And,
Yes.
and Danchenko, I have a chapter about Durham. I'm very critical of Durham. And Danchenko was prosecuted and acquitted. And
Mm.
this guy's story, I also talked to Mike Espy, who you're a little too young for that, maybe, but
Yeah.
Espy was a Clinton agriculture secretary. Who
Oh,
was
I remember
also
that case. Oh, yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
he was acquitted too. And
Yeah.
both of them told me the whole story, what it was like to be raked over the coals by these guys. And so it was so
Interesting.
much fun. Andy McCabe, Andy McCabe talked to me. I mean, tons of people and I know, but tons of people I didn't know either, who were very generous and forthcoming. And so it's really like case by case. And at the end, and this is probably of most interest to you and your viewers, I ask, like, what do we do now? And my core thesis
Yeah.
is this, in terms of the looking forward part. We are losing, as we speak, a lot of guardrails, a lot of traditional protections that both parties have observed for the last half century or so, whether
Right.
it's inspectors general or, the idea that you don't fire non-political DOJ employees.
Yep.
You know
There's
the
a New
whole.
York Times story out about that today, which we don't
There
have
you
time
go.
to get into. Yeah.
And my thesis is the special counsel is going to die during Trump 2.0 unless he chooses to use it in a brand new sort of retributive way to go after Jack Smith or, whatever. But the traditional use of special counsel to investigate basically in-house, to look at the president or people around him
Yeah.
is gone. But I argue it's essential that we collectively don't let that die, that we bring it
Right.
back no matter who is president. Now, look, it's highly imperfect. These cases have been badly flawed in numerous ways over the years, but there's ways to fix it. There's ways to do it better. There's lessons to be learned. And so I propose that we need this to survive. And I quote, everyone from Archibald Cox to Janet Reno to you name it, who say, look, you do have to have some system to independently investigate the president. And to the title, which of course I took from The Wire, you come at the king, you better not miss. Although I learned in the research, it actually goes back way,
Mm.
Machiavelli
It
used
goes
it.
back a ways. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Ralph Waldo
But but
Emerson.
but
But yeah,
but the thing that strikes me about the premise of the book and the title of the book is that it is very much, and I know it's not a Trump book, but it is very
yeah,
much at the heart of where we are right now as a country.
yeah.
Had he not gotten that immunity decision the way he got it from the Supreme Court,
Oh, I
and
talk about
and
that in
and,
the book quite a bit. Yep.
and by the way, you and I have not spoken in a while. I mean, the way the Roberts Supreme Court has behaved since Trump has gotten back into the White House. I mean, I will say for John Roberts' critics, that his actions, the way the court has ruled, maybe you could point to some exceptions. Obviously, anybody can point to exceptions. I think ignites more concerns about the behavior of the Chief Justice, the principles, the ideology of the Chief Justice, and what's going to happen to the Supreme Court moving forward. It just seems like such a damaged institution because it seems, by and large, they're just in this mood to keep pulling off the guardrails around this particular president.
Well, and I do spend a good chunk of that last chapter talking about the immunity decision, both in the sense that it ended essentially, Jack Smith's prosecutions, or, mostly ended them, or at least ended any chance he had to try them before the election. And it was a watershed moment. I mean, I remember, gosh, was I with you when it happened? Were you? Because you had the 10 o'clock show.
I
And
think so. I think so. I think we
was
did that
probably
together. Yeah.
sitting next to you when that
We
came
weren't,
out.
maybe we weren't expecting it, and then kablooey, it happened. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think we knew because it was the last day of whatever it was.
Or maybe,
But
I can't remember. Yeah.
that was a watershed moment. And it really does. I do say in the book, one of my ultimate recommendations at the end, I make 8 or 9 recommendations, is prosecutors cannot look at that opinion and say it's impossible to prosecute a president or a former president, because it's not impossible. They do leave, but I say in the book, the Supreme Court doesn't really articulate where the line is. We know it's out there somewhere, but prosecutors have to feel that out where it is. I'm not saying they should just bring charges willy-nilly, but they shouldn't just fold up their tents because of that. And again, to the title of the book, one thing that struck me, looking as far back as even before Nixon, the first one was actually Ulysses S. Grant, which I love. When people get in these scenarios, going back 50 years, going back 200 years, when they're either a prosecutor, a defense lawyer, a target, an FBI agent, a judge, you name it, and it involves this type of case, they realize that it's kill or be killed. It's blood sport. It's obituary level stuff. And I went back. I mean, obituaries are such a great source of research. And I found the obituaries, basically every person who's ever touched any one of these cases, first line of the obituary, the so-and-so from the Iran-Contra case, the so-and-so from the Ken Starr case. So it leads people sometimes to a higher level, but more often it leads people to do crazy or irresponsible or strange things because they're in, self-protection mode. So.
Well, I can't wait to see the book when it comes out, Elie, and it's great to catch up with you. Best of luck with all of this. Best of luck with your voice as you're voicing this, narrating this book.
So you can hear it's a little huskier than normal. And this has been great. I'm loving Summer Acosta. And by the way, I have to say, I don't know where you are, Jim, but at one point, maybe 10 minutes ago, a male ran across your...
There's some kids back there. I'm in Aspen, and the kids are having fun. I'm not having fun. So I'll be poolside shortly. Just take it from me.
Yeah, I was like, if that's your home and that's your backyard, I might be mildly concerned because I saw a guy...
No. I'm in Aspen having a good... I'll explain a little bit, but I very much not in D.C. or New York, not in the Acela corridor, to say the least.
Consistent with Summer Acosta.
Exactly.
All right, man.
Great to see you, man.
Thanks, Jim.
All right, Elie. Great to catch up with you.